Welcome everyone for joining us live and by recorded video to this month's Let's Talk Solution. We're focusing on Foundation Cloud Grants 2.0 today. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording today's presentation and you'll be able to find this and previous recordings on NPAC's knowledge base. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We have team members monitoring your questions and we will make time at the end to discuss some of them live. With that, my name is Amy Strom, the Director of Client Success, and today you will hear from Jeff Armstrong, our Chief Product Officer, on our 2.0 release. Before we jump into the product highlights, I am pleased to announce that NPAC has updated our product names. You will notice the new look and feel throughout our products. What was previously Grant Edge NXT is now referred to as Foundation Cloud Grants, and previously named Spectrum NXT is now Foundation Cloud Community Portal. We have also renamed Endowment Manager to our Fund Investment Tool, FIT for short. With that, I will pass the baton off to Jeff to review the highlights from our new release. Jeff?
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, folks. Highlights from this release, these are the things we're going to be walking through today. So first of all, big changes to correspondence, the mail merges that we're used to doing here in Foundation Cloud Grants. Instead of using these DOTX files, these Microsoft Word template files, we built a tool to bring those in as HTML, and we're no longer going to rely on those files. And so the HTML template editor is something that's integrated into GE. It's powerful. We'll be looking at that today. We've also added Power BI paginated reports. Our beta customers only had 5 or so paginated reports to work with initially. Now we've got roughly 70. I can't recall exactly. We'll take a look at those, and we've integrated them into the record screens. So you can look at a grant record and run a report that's tied to a grant record screen and see just the data for that particular record on a report. The control panel menu has been reorganized. We're now calling it settings. There are a lot more options there. We'll walk through some of those today as well. We have added, part of that new settings menu is the business rules screen where we configure GE. It's a lot better organized and easier to find things. We've moved over some of the utilities from GE Classic, which were, the global delete utility, the constituent admin utility, etc. We've moved some of those utilities into GE NXT as well. We'll walk through some of those today. And then the grant adjustment utility, we decided rather than building a whole utility for that, we were just going to integrate grant adjustment functionality into the grant screens themselves. And so an administrator can now log in and modify grant payments, amounts for the payments, for the grant level, for the grant fund level, for the component level, and make those changes right in the grant screen. And we'll take a look at that too. And that, of course, is limited by user security. That's only available to folks who have permission to do so. System administrators. So that's a quick overview of the changes. That's not comprehensive, of course. There were a lot of changes in this release. And so we're going to dive in and take a look at a few of them. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Amy. Just a sec. All right, so here we are. Amy, can you let me know, can you guys see my Foundation Cloud screen?
Yes, we can.
Good deal. Thank you, ma'am. This is our production website, CGE NXT Fusion Labs hosting. This is, you see the new logo here we've got for Foundation Cloud Grants. The background color here is green instead of the dark gray we had before. So we've made some UI changes. Everywhere that used to say GE NXT now says Foundation Cloud. So if you notice some changes in maybe the help content or anything else, we've made changes throughout. So the big changes were here in this settings menu. This used to be called control panel. Now it's called settings. A lot of the functionality that was under control panel already has been just reorganized and left in place. So we've got manage users. This is where you'd set up your users and your roles, etc. That hasn't changed. We've just moved it into this area. Correspondence. This is where we manage correspondence templates. A lot of changes there. I'll come back to that one. I'll save it for last. The workflow screens that we had in place already, we've essentially just moved to a new area, but the functionality for configuring workflows is the same. And then same for characteristics. We did fix a couple of glitches in characteristic configuration, and we moved them into a new window here, but the functionality is pretty much the same there. We used to have a concept called profiles. So a grant record would have a profile, a proposal record could have a profile. The word profile has served its purpose and we're moving on. So we're now calling them custom fields. We think that's a better name. But profile configuration, custom field configuration is now something that's done here in this screen. And so on a grant record, there's that tile that used to be called profile. It's now called custom fields. If I've got, we've got these 6, and in this particular tenant, in this sandbox, we've got 6 custom fields defined for a grant. And this can be any field that you don't have defined in a grant record that you need to track. These can be characteristic type fields, etc. But this is where you would define those. Whenever these were profiles, you had a lot of configuration options on them, and we just greatly simplified that so that when you're looking at a custom field, you just have the name, the data type. Is it going to have a format if it's a phone number, zip code, whatever? The sort order, a default value, and then a flag whether or not it's required. So custom field configuration is in here now. The logs that were in the control panel previously have been moved to this view activity screen. So we've got sync logs, system logs, transaction logs for those of you who are using our Foundation Cloud community portal for your online gifts. These are the transactions for the credit card and ACH transactions that are donations that are being made, the transactions there. That's all under view activity. Data tools, we've brought a lot of functionality in from Classic here for data tools. So we have a grant import tool. If you ever used the grant import tool in GE Classic, it was functional but clunky. We've cleaned it up quite a bit here in NXT. So you download a template, you'll notice that in this template there are far fewer fields than there used to be. We're just defaulting a lot of the values. And I think this is going to open on my other monitor here. Let me drag this over. But out of the box, you can see we've just got, it looks like all the way through W, 23 columns here rather than the 30 or more that we had before. So greatly simplified here. You can add characteristics, you can add custom fields, formerly called profile fields. Put all the data in here that you need to. The columns don't have to be in this order. If you've got extra columns, they just get ignored. So significant improvement from the way it used to work. When you import them, it'll tell you if it found the recipient, if it found the payee. If not, it can create a new one. It can even create a new one in your CRM or finance system. So very powerful, significantly cleaned up. We're excited about this new grant import tool. The global delete functions work the same way that they did in Classic. Any records that are available to be deleted based on whatever the criteria is for that record type will be shown here. For grants, I think it's grants that have a status that's been set to invalid before they can be deleted. If you have proposal web apps that can be deleted, here's a list of those, etc. You just select the ones you want and you delete them, and it logs that for you. The constituent utility, this is a really useful tool for identifying duplicates. So I can look at duplicates by name, and this will tell me I've got 6 different constituents with the same name, and a lot of them point to the same FE key. So maybe I should merge some of these. I can open one of them up. It'll take a second to pull up. It'll tell me what the duplicate record is, and I'm not sure what's going on with this screen, but I've got the option here on the screen to merge these 2 constituents together, just like we had in Classic. So you can find duplicates by name, you can find duplicates by their CRM key, their Razor's Edge key, by their finance key, etc. So lots of different ways to identify duplicates, merge them together. And then we've got a fund statement builder that we've set up here. This is for configuring a fund statement. If you've already got your fund statement set up, you shouldn't need to change things here unless you go in and make significant changes to your chart of accounts. We recommend talking with the folks on the support desk before going in and making changes here, but this is essentially a tool that's used by the implementation team as they're setting up foundations with a new instance of Foundation Cloud Grants. So lots of cool new data tools. Don't know if we mentioned it before, but if you've got questions, please feel free to put them in Q&A. We'll make some time later on. I know I'm moving through these kind of fast, but
we do have one question, Jeff.
Yeah, let's come up for air.
On the import tool, can this be used to make global changes to existing grant records?
Not at this time. The use case here for folks using the import grants tool is if you're doing your, we have a few foundations who are doing scholarship applications or competitive grant applications in a system outside of the Foundation Cloud products. So rather than using Foundation Cloud Community Portal, maybe you're using a competitor's product, you choose the grants that you want to create in Foundation Cloud grants, and you can import those. All grants that are imported have a status of request, which is the initial status of a new grant record, and they can then be batched up and put onto check runs for processing. So that's the use case. It's not a global update, and it's not a tool that can be used for that at this time. Although we have heard from several foundations that global update from a spreadsheet is something that is that would be helpful to have in the product. So we're reviewing that feature request. It's in our backlog of feature requests to review and to get into a roadmap. But at this time, that's not what that feature does, Amy.
Thank you.
I see 2 Q&A questions here. Okay, got it. Cool. All right. Yeah, feel free to ask any more questions you need to. If I'm going too fast, more than happy to come up for air and answer questions as they come up. So that was the data tools menu. Moving on here, the last one of interest here is the system menu. We'll go into that one. Site admin is not going to be available for you guys. This is for our support team to do diagnostics, and for our implementation team to set up new customers, etc. System will be the last item in your list. And business rules is the big one that you're going to be concerned with. Across the top, we've got all these tabs for configuring the business rules. We've got, foundation information, email settings, record alerts. You can see, this is where when you see a list of recently accessed lists, what's the format of those recently accessed lists? How do we set those up, etc. On your landing pages, what is the number of records shown? If you've got a lot of grant history in your system, you've probably gone to your grant landing page and seen something like only the top 3,000 results are shown. Click here to load them all, right? We do that for performance reasons. If you have 20,000 records in there, it's going to take a long time to pull them up into the screens. So this is where we can change those record limits and bring in more records if needed. I'm not going to go through each and every setting on each of these pages, but there are CRM system configuration items here. And this one I want to show you because it's relatively important. If you're using a CRM system and you've got your constituent code set up, and let's say that you've got for your grant recipient, you call it grant recipient or whatever. If you decide to go to your Raiser's Edge system and change your constituent codes that you're using to flag grant recipients, that's totally fine, but we need to know about it, right? In fact, Foundation Cloud Grants needs to know what this constituent code is going to be to identify these grant recipients. So if you change the configuration of RE, you're going to need to come in and just make sure that GE knows about that, that Foundation Cloud Grants knows about that configuration change. This is where we set relationship types for fund advisors that are coming in, for contact types. This is where we set attribute types from the Raiser's Edge. A couple important ones to note here. As we sync in email addresses, or as we sync in phone numbers, or what Blackbaud Raiser's Edge calls online presence, which used to be called URL. This is where we'd set those phone types. And so these are used not only for syncing in particular records, but if GE needs to go create or update a constituent record in the CRM system, it's going to use whatever phone type you have configured here. So if you've changed this from a business address and decided to call it a preferred or some other sort of an address type, you need to come in and set that attribute here. Same for finance. There are certain finance configuration settings that need to be maintained between your Financial Edge or your finance system and Foundation Cloud. For the most part, these are set up during implementation and you don't really have to think about them. But if you do make significant configuration changes in FE, there may be a time where you need to come in and make changes to GE's configuration. For example, this is where we set the invoice number format. We have to be careful about the invoice number format because by default, Financial Edge has a limit on an invoice number length. It can only be 20 characters or less. And so if we put a whole bunch of data in there, then we could end up with, if you put a fund name, for example, then you'd likely run out of space when you're trying to create invoices. So This is where we configure these things. Invoice preferences. What's the post date on an invoice going to be? What's the post date for a reissue going to be, etc. So, and then cash available configuration, etc. So, grant settings. These are where we define the grant types. You can go in and recode these. You can rename these. For every grant type, what is our default workflow template going to be? What's our default payment type going to be? And of course, these can be overridden on a grant by grant basis, but these are what our defaults are going to be. And all sorts of other things to configure on grant records. Fund configuration for the fund types and the fund categories brought in from a CRM system. Constituent configuration settings, whether you want to use the charity evaluator tool or not, etc. So lots of things here to configure in system configuration. Again, this is primarily used by the implementation team as we're setting up new foundations. It's also used by the support team when troubleshooting issues in a CRM or a finance system. But this is a lot of work our engineers have put into making this configurable here on the screens and simplifying it. Before we had this general global settings area, if you remember the global settings page from earlier versions of GE and XT, and it was just an alphabetical list of 200 or 300 settings that was very difficult to navigate. So this is the business rules page, and now we're going to jump into correspondence. So this is like I mentioned before, we've changed the way correspondence templates work. Rather than reading from those DOTX files, it's now HTML based. So you can see here in this grid, any template that's in red is still an XSL file in Excel, and it hasn't been converted to HTML yet. So as you open one of them up, it'll automatically convert it for you. But here's one that's already converted to HTML. I'll pull this up and edit it. We can see here we've got the template name, we've got the template type, what sort of grant record or what sort of records are we going to be using this correspondence template for. This one's set up for grants. And then which query are we going to be using? This is the default grant query. And by choosing this query, it gave me these available fields. Changing queries will obviously change the fields that are available for a mail merge. The subject line, you'll notice now the subject line can include fields from the query. Before this wasn't possible. And also before you weren't able to configure the subject line here at the template level. So every template can have its own subject line. So this is a grant award notification. You can see here I've set up a correspondence template. I can do images. I can change the I can change the font. Here, this is in italics. We've got bold, etc. Field names. There are tools built into here, into this HTML editor, where we can validate it and make sure. Here we go. We can validate the template and make sure that all the fields that are here are actually fields that are in the query. It's telling me that it's valid. I can upload an existing DOTX file. If I have a template file from a Microsoft Word template, I can just upload it from scratch and bring it into here. And then, of course, I would want to validate it and make sure that all the fields that were in that file are actually fields that are available here in the query. I can test it out and just put my own email address in here if I wanted to and send a quick message to myself to validate it. And so this is how we are editing correspondence templates. We've got still the integrated help, which will help you with details on how all this works too. So with these templates, we can then go into, let's go into a grant record. And let's pull up this grant. So the functionality on how we do correspondence templates is still the same. So your user experience will be the same here. If I'm going to add a new correspondence template, I choose, do I want to do a document or do I want to do email? I'm going to do a document, and let's do this grant transmittal letter we were just looking at. And here's the document. It did the merge. You can see we've got a contact name here. We've got all the merge fields have been populated. It's got my images. It's got the font changes, of course. And so this is the document that was created here. I can go ahead and save this. And then from here, I can just really easily, from here rather, I can go ahead and just generate the letter. So here's a PDF I can print with this letter on it. I can also do an email from here the same way, just by choosing email instead of choosing document. And of course, this is still available in batch. I'm going to jump over to a grant batch screen. And let's pull up a grant batch here. Here's a batch that's got 4 payments on it. I'm just going to go into new batch correspondence, and I can choose documents or I can choose emails. I'm going to go ahead and choose email. It'll be that same grant transmittal letter. And I'm going to send this to the recipients, and I'll say okay. And it's generated 4 emails for me. These emails are going to go back onto the grant records. So that grant record we just looked at and we manually added a correspondence letter there. We've done this automatically here and added these to these 4 grants as emails, not as letters. For each of these, I can go in and edit the content of the email. I can add a CC if I need to and send it to somebody else. If I needed to change something here, maybe this constituent didn't have a salutation, and so I would need to come in and type in their salutation, etc. I could change this and save it. I can make changes to all 4 of them, and those changes go back to the record in real time. And that's true both for emails and now for letters too. There was a real challenge before where if you were editing these letters one at a time, you couldn't save them back to the grant letters. Sorry, back to the grant records. But now any changes you make here are saved back to the grant records. So I could send all 4 of these emails from here by clicking send. If I try to close without, it's going to warn me this is the only time I've got to send all 4 of these at the same time. Am I sure? For our purposes today, I'm just going to go ahead and close this. But I'll say yes. And then if we go back into one of these and go back into this grant record, we can see on correspondent on documents that here we are, 11:22 a.m. I just generated this email, and I can pull it up and see the message that was generated and sent. So looks like we've got questions in Q&A, Amy. Let me.
We do. One question was, will my templates and records in Classic still work the same?
Yes, they will. Great question. This is only in GE and XT, so we are bringing in the template. We're reading the templates and converting them to HTML and storing them in the grants database so the GE and XT can use them. But Classic will continue to use the templates in the same way.
Great. The other one is more of a request. They'd love to see global updates to workflow tasks in batches.
Good deal. Thanks for that feature request. We will, after this call, we'll compile in this and any other feature requests and put them into our feature request backlog so we can triage those. Thanks.
Great.
Appreciate that, Dora.
Another question is, what if we wanted to send a batch to multiple recipients, for example, with scholarships?
Yeah, so the example I showed here was on this batch screen. Let me jump over. There were 4 different grants that were here. And so essentially when I did the correspondence and the email and I chose the grants transmittal letter, it gave me the option to send either to the recipients or to the fund advisors. And this is going to go to all 4 recipients at the same time. It's generated 4 emails for all 4 of these. It works the same way here in, I'm going to go ahead and close this, in the scholarship batches. We've got that same, if I open up a scholarship batch that has 2 applications in it, we've got this same new batch correspondence function here. And I can do a new email for, it looks like I don't have any templates set up, but I could, if I chose the template here in this sandbox, then I could send it to all of the scholarship applicants and send it out to each one of them. This is useful. I could do it twice. I could send it just to the folks who are getting award letters, and I could do it again just to the ones who are getting decline letters as well. So good functionality there.
Right.
And then another question from Dora for the email. How
Yes.
do we distinguish which ones were saved as a draft and which ones were sent? Good question. Let's go over to one of these grant records. There are documents listed here, and there's a sent column here that says when they were sent. So for a letter, we don't track when it was sent. This is really only relevant for the email. And so if it's an email, then it'll have a sent timestamp if it's been sent, and if it's just a draft, it won't have that sent set on it yet. So you can tell from here whether or not it was sent. And you can also open it up and resend it too if you need to.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. All right, so while we're on a grant record here, I'm going to take a look at an adjustment for a grant. As I mentioned before, the adjustment utility in GE Classic, we decided just to bring the adjustment functionality into the grant screen. I've logged in as a system administrator, so I have this adjust grant amount feature available here. And so when it pulls up, it tells me that at the grant level, this is a $75 grant, and its adjusted amount is also $75, and that the funds total up to 75 and 75, the payments total up, the components all total up, and there are no adjustments. So this is the same summary that we had in the adjustment utility in the classic version. But here I can see the fund breakdown. This is a multi-fund grant. There are two different funds. So I can see the breakdown here. This is the grant fund records. We've got the payment records, that these all seem to line up. The components, this is for both payments. So for the first payment, we've got 50 coming from this fund and nothing from that fund. And then it's reversed on the second one. The second payment is all coming from the second fund and none from the first one. So that looks correct. There are no adjustments that have been made here. If these amounts were wrong, then you'd see that things didn't add up here, right? So this should be 75 and now it's only showing 31 because I've messed up the amount. I'm not going to make this change. I'm going to cancel it. But those changes that you make are, they do end up down in the properties tile. You can see the activity log. We have grant adjusted, and so you can tell who made the adjustment. One of the things that we're going to have coming in 2.1 or 2.2 is additional detail here on the activity log. There are additional details that are logged to the database. You can still see these in GE Classic in the database view and the admin view, but they're coming soon to GE NXT. We'll let you to Foundation Cloud Grants. Sorry, got to get used to the new name. But we'll add a feature here where you can drill in and see the additional details besides just the timestamp and the user of what happened to a grant at a particular time. So I see another question here. What if a wrong email address is pulling into the correspondence batch? Do I need to fix these separately from this batch list? If the wrong email address is pulling into the correspondence batch, essentially what that would mean would be that the grant recipient had the incorrect email address in the constituent record. And so essentially you'd need to go into the constituent record in the CRM system, fix it there, and then sync it in to GE, and that would update it. If multiple pages of email lists, is there a way that the file list doesn't keep reverting back to page one after each email fix? Great question. We will take a look at that. That's something we need to take a look at and see what it's going to take to get that fixed. But that sounds annoying. So whoever
Jeff,
sent
there's
that question,
also there's a question in the chat too about, do the correspondence templates save back to our M drive? That they usually bulk print their grant letters through the M drive, and if they do not save there, how can they bulk print these from Foundation Cloud?
Great question. Let's jump back over to that batch. Rather than doing emails, this time I'm going to do letters, right? So if I go document instead of email, and I pick this this batch correspondence, it's created 4 documents, right? And so these are, this is the output from the merge. Each of these is associated back with this grant letter. I can change each one of these one at a time. So I can pull this up and this says just Dear Fred. This guy needs a last name, right? And so I can save that change. That save has saved the value back to the database, and it's now accessible back under the grant menu. If I were looking at grant number 1240, I could see the change that I made there. When I say download, this is going to put all 4 documents into a single document, all 4 pages. Let's take a look at this PDF. It's a 4-page PDF. You'll see that change I just made that says Armstrong for that last name. So we've got all 4 pages, and so this has been downloaded through the browser to my downloads directory on my hard drive on my computer. So this is not being saved back to the M drive. This is each of these 4 individual records are saved in the database instead. They can be downloaded and printed at any time. Really, the only way to do that in bulk is through this screen, is once we're on this correspondence batch pop-up, and it gives you that warning as you're closing it to say this is your shot to merge them all together into a single document. So you can download them, but it doesn't save them to your M drive.
Great, thank you.
I'm not quite sure exactly what the scope of that question was, but if it was questioning whether or not editing the templates themselves over here in the template editor, if that affects the DOTX file on the M drive, and the answer there is no. Once you've brought in your template to GE NXT here, to Foundation Cloud Grants, once you've brought it in and you make changes to it here, it no longer looks at the DOTX file in the M drive. All the changes are saved in our database.
Thank you. Another question was, when creating a correspondence template designed to go to fund advisors via a check run batch, is it possible to format the template to display a table of all grants made by a single fund advisor into the same email?
Oh, that's a good question, Mark. Format the template to display list for all grants made by a single same email. So within a given check run batch, if there's a fund that is sending, 4 of the grants that are in that check run batch, giving them a single letter with a list of those 4 funds that are paid, we'd have to get creative, Mark. I think we could probably build a query, manually build a query that would get that data. It would have to be a custom query in GE. But again, remember that each correspondence template is based on a GE query. So if we built a custom query that had all that information in it, we could probably find a way to get that into a correspondence template. It would be tricky, but that's something we'd probably have to assist with.
Also, Jeff, can you show us how to add a CC to the emails?
You bet. So if we've got, let's go back to a grant record. We'll do this on an individual grant record here. If I'm going to go do correspondence to documents, new correspondence, I'll go email. So this is the message that gets generated. You could manually type in a CC here if you want to. There's no to address set yet. So these 2 CC and BCC links bring up another screen that's got constituents that are associated with this grant, and these can be constituents that are associated with the recipient, relationships for the constituent that's the recipient, payee email addresses from the vendor record that came over from the finance system. These can be fund advisor emails, etc. So we try to get as many of these options, out of the database for you as possible. And so I can say I want to send it to this person, and I want to CC this person. And it will automatically put these in for you. This is just a tool to help you build these out if you've got these in your database already. And once you do that, it's got them populated. And of course, you can just manually type in an additional email address on the CC there as well and send that out. I'm going to cancel this one. I think we're caught up on Q&A, Amy. Is there something else in the chat?
We just have one more. It's regarding an alert.
Okay.
It said, will the alert that is this fund has exceeded its cash balance be corrected?
Yep.
Yeah, will it only populate with a negative instead of a 0 balance?
You've stumped the band. I think it does less than or equal to 0 today. And I know we've had at least one foundation ask for that to be less than a 0, not than a less. So essentially saying that 0 is fine. And I think it was for a foundation whose fund balances weren't working properly. So we will add that to the feature backlog. Was that one of the questions that was typed in either to the chat or to the Q&A, Amy?
It's in the chat. Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll review the chat messages and add that to the backlog of feature requests. If it's not there already, it may be there already.
Great, thank you.
But we haven't recently changed that functionality, so it's still working the same way it always has in Classic and here in Foundation Cloud Grants.
That's it. We're caught up.
Okay, very good. So let's switch over and talk Power BI. I'm going to bring over. This is our production site. I'm switching over here to our development site. This is where our engineers are hard at work doing all the stuff that they do. But if we look at reporting, we have a handful of clients who are doing beta testing for Power BI. Thanks to all of you who are doing beta testing and giving us such great feedback. The list of paginated reports that that these customers had to work with was initially only, I think, like 5 reports that they had to test with. And so now we've got 68 loaded in. We have a bunch more reports that are available. And those can now be accessed on record screens. So as you go, design a report, you can flag it as being a report that goes onto a particular record screen. But if I take a look at, let's look at this recently accessed record. There's Power BI reports. I can choose from this is a subset of the reports. There's 68 reports, but it looks like these 4 have been flagged as being available on a grant record, which means as I run this grant details report, what's going to happen is behind the scenes, it's going to pass in the grant ID to this report as one of the parameters for the report. So you can see it's running this report just for this particular grant. And it's showing just the grant details on this one grant. So this was a feature that was available in the SQL Server reports, and it's now available for Power BI reports. So this is a big advancement here in Power BI. We were waiting on this feature to come out here in this version before we started rolling out Power BI to additional clients. And now that that's in place, we're going to ramp up. We'll talk about this in a second when we talk about product roadmaps, but we're going to go ahead and ramp up the migration of your Power BI tenants on a customer by customer basis. We won't do it without talking to you first. And of course, rest assured, we're not taking away your SSRS reports. They're not going anywhere. We're going to work with you to get those converted to Power BI. We still have a long time before Microsoft sunsets that, so no need to worry there. I wanted to take a quick second and show off one of the things that the Power BI team has been working on. This is the report development sandbox. And so, out of the box, we've got those 6 or 7 visualizations that are available. But from here, I can just build a whole new visualization with drag and drop. It's super easy. So if I wanted to do, oh, heck, I don't know, let's do a clustered bar chart. Just want to double click it. I'm still learning it too. So here we are. So here's a brand new clustered bar chart, and I'm going to jump over to fields. And let's go look at, here we go. Let's look at fund balances. We're still working on getting these data sets, some of the field names standardized, et cetera. But let's bring in a fund number and a cash available, and maybe even a net assets. So for each fund, what's their cash available? What's their net assets? I mean, so just here in 30 seconds, I've created this cool visual with data from this grants database. So this is the sort of stuff you're going to be able to do in building your own dashboards, building your own visualizations here in Foundation Cloud Grants. Super exciting. I just saw this the other day and I got excited, so I figured I had to share it with you. So anyway, coming soon. It's we're not sure exactly when we're going to roll this out. We're still researching licensing. Is Microsoft going to charge us extra? What sort of bandwidth is it going to take up, et cetera. So we'll get back to you with more details once we get this rolled out. Once we get it figured out. So Amy, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and let you switch back to the slide deck, and we're going to talk through the upcoming product roadmap. So this is just super short term here, what we're looking at for Foundation Cloud Grants. We're going to do another patch here coming up in a few weeks, early November. We'd like to say, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to roll out a new patch. It's essentially going to be minor enhancements, bug fixes. As folks start using this new version, if they let us know, hey, there's a problem here, we'll be able to react quickly and make some changes. So in the next few weeks, we're going to do a quick patch. And then essentially we're going to go heads down during the giving season. We know historically foundations have told us don't mess with my systems between Thanksgiving and New Year's because it's a busy time and we don't want you breaking stuff. So we're not planning any major releases for those windows for Foundation Cloud Grants or for Spectrum Web Portal. We're going to leave your systems alone during the giving season. Of course, we'll be here to support them, but we're going to begin significant development efforts. So Foundation Clouds 2.2 is going to be in early January. We're going to roll out our Sage Intacct and Salesforce integrations for additional options for CRM and finance systems. Manual data syncs, which right now are only available in GE Classic. We're going to roll out a limited set of those manual data syncs that you can do from NXT. A couple of other small features as well that we'll be adding in. We'll go into a little more detail on the next slide, but and then, as we mentioned before, Power BI rollout. We're going to start ramping up the rollout of Power BI to each of you. So on the next slide here, we see the product roadmaps essentially for all the products across this quarter and next quarter. And so I won't go through every single detail here, but at a high level, this is what we're working on. Again, nothing major to roll out during Q4. You know, Foundation Cloud Community Portal says that a lot is coming in Q4, and we're probably going to wait until early January to roll that out, just so we don't mess with your systems during the busy season. But multi-factor authentication is a huge priority for us in the Foundation Cloud Community Portal. That'll be coming early next year. Additional payment features, etc. So with our Fit product, as Amy mentioned at the beginning of the call, we have a new logo. We have a new look and feel, so we'll be rolling out a new version of that in the coming weeks that essentially just has a couple of bug fixes and a UI change. We started a project in Fit to integrate with Oracle's NetSuite for finance. Right now, Fit is only integrating with Blackbaud's FE and XT. We're going to add NetSuite to that list, and then eventually we'll put Sage in it as well. It'll get multi-factor authentication. It'll also get Power BI reporting, etc. You'll notice, I'll just mention real briefly, the very last item here is our public API. I know a lot of you folks have been asking for it. We get asked about it in sales demos as well. But our first phase of the public API is essentially just going to be to retrieve data. And so we'll be retrieving fund data, constituent data, grant data. You'll be able to retrieve one record at a time, query with some parameters to say, get me a list of all the funds and page through those results. And then also any query you can build in GE Queries, you'll be able to run those from the API and basically extract any data you need to. So we're hoping to get that first version released at the end of the first quarter. It likely will be towards the end of Q1. It'll be more like March whenever we roll that out. Our second version, our second phase of that product is going to be the other way around, not just retrieving, but it'll be writing data. So creating new grant request records, updating available to spend amounts for funds, etc. So that'll be coming in phase 2.
Great. Well, thank you, Jeff. This was very informative. If you have any questions regarding our newest 2.0 release or any of your functionality, please reach out to our support team. And for more product information, visit our knowledge base. We have updated articles there for our new release. Thanks everyone for joining today. This has been a great interactive meeting.